So, Sean Baker, your new film, The Florida Project, has gotten rave reviews from critics and from audiences as well. Just take us back to the beginning. Where did the idea for this movie come from?
Well, my co-screenwriter, Chris Bergosh, brought this world to my attention. He had become aware of the situation down in Kissimmee in Orlando, Florida, uh, in which basically families with children. Sorry, should I turn down the volume on this? Because I hear an echo, and I'm
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah,
sorry about that.
oh, it's okay.
Okay, here we go. So my co-screenwriter, Chris Bergosh, brought this world to my attention. Basically, he had become aware of a situation in Kissimmee in Orlando in which budget motels were becoming the last refuge for families and individuals, sometimes with children, who basically could not secure permanent housing. And this is the last refuge they have before turning to the streets. And this juxtaposition of children growing up in budget motels right outside of the place that we consider the most magical place on earth really grabbed my attention. I found it to be quite a subject that I don't think many people know about. An issue, the issue of the hidden homeless in the U.S. is something that I certainly didn't know about, and I thought that a narrative fiction film could help shine light on it. And at the same time, I've always been very influenced and inspired by the Little Rascals, the comic shorts of the 20s and 30s, produced by Hal Roach. And these were basically comedic adventures of young children set against the Great Depression. Most of the characters in the Little Rascals were actually living in poverty, but the focus was the joy of childhood, the humor that comes from watching children interact. So I thought that this situation that's going on in the U.S. right now could actually be our opportunity to make sort of a present day Little Rascals, using entertaining an audience, having an audience laugh, revisit the summers of their youth, and yet at the same time using this film to shine light on what I consider a very timely, important subject.
In the writing of the script, I mean, the film is fairly episodic in its approach. I wonder, I mean, what was the writing process like? How did you, I guess, find the structure of the film?
Well, there is probably a 3-act structure somewhere in there, but the lines are blurred. I always saw it this way. When you look back at the summers of your youth, did they ever have a 3-act structure? No. They were more about just moments and memories and anecdotes, and that's how I wanted to approach this film. I wanted the audience to feel as if they are hanging out with little Moonee and her gang of friends, as if they are one of the little gang of friends, and joining with her on her mischievous summer adventures. That was how I approached it. So Chris Bergosh and we had to blur those lines. We had to make character arcs not as obvious, and the beginning, middle, and end not exactly as profound as one would have, I guess, in a conventional screenplay.
It's interesting also, I don't know if this was your intention or not, but I certainly kind of got this from the movie. There's this sort of, in the way that the character of Moonee sees the world, it is sort of fragmented in the ways that she kind of like sees things that adults do, and you don't really understand what they're doing until you look at it in hindsight. Does that make sense?
Most definitely. We were always playing with that balance of how much Moonee knows and therefore how much the audience knows. Most of the film, I'm sorry, is seen through a child's perspective. Not exactly through Moonee's eyes, but seeing the world from the viewpoint of a child. Mm-hmm. So we took into consideration exactly how much would be absorbed, how much they are actually aware of their situation. And, it comes down to really a balancing act. That's how we approached it.
So, I mean, they say that you should never work with either children or animals. You work with a lot of children in this movie. I wonder, what was your approach like to working with them? How did you get performances out of their child actors?
Well, first and foremost, casting is everything. We took our time with casting. You have to find kids who can act. It's a skill. I'm not just, I don't have the money or the time to actually just document them. We had a story to tell, so they had to learn lines. They had to understand their characters. So you go about it first by spending a lot of time and making sure that you have the kids that will work for this, and not only they're, and who understand that they're going to be dedicating a lot of time. Now, there's that, and then there is the way that you actually achieve that. And I asked, an acting coach to come on board. Her name is Samantha Kwan, and to really help me out with the kids, because I had never worked with kids of this age before. I worked with toddlers on Prince of Broadway, and I worked with preteens on my television show, Greg the Bunny, but never kids between 6 and 9 years old. And we had to, and Samantha Kwan was wonderful. She really taught me a lot of things about how to work with children. They have to learn their lines. Blocking is very different from blocking with an adult. You can't just tell them what to do. You have to show them what to do. Sometimes even like the amount of steps in a scene, you take 1, 2, 3, 4, then you pivot, then you deliver your line. You have to be extremely clear. Now, then if you have incredible little performers and very smart children, the way that we did on the film, they're able to then, once they learn it, they're able to loosen it up. So I would say loosen it up a little. You don't have to go exactly what we said. You can put it into your own words, or if you have a joke you want to throw in there, you want to throw in a comment, feel free to do that. And all the kids were incredible at that. But then, of course, and Brooklynn Prince, who plays Moonee in the film, is just, I just consider her on a whole other level in terms of just, she was born to do this. She understands the craft of acting even at her young age. She was 6 when we shot, 7 years old now. And she was able to really embody Moonee, and really understand to a certain degree her struggle. And so it wasn't just about comedic acting. She was able to get to emotional heights that I think we didn't even know that she was going to be able to get to. She's quite an amazing young actor.
She is indeed. It's not just the children who are first-timers and non-professionals. You populate the film with a lot of first-timers and non-professionals, including the actress who plays Moonee's mother. I wonder, where did you find these people?
Sure. I'll talk about the way we went about casting. We had a very conventional way of casting and very unconventional ways of casting. The one thing I should make clear, though, is that non-professionals, that word is actually something I only like to apply to those individuals who are more one-time players, meaning that they're in the community and we say to them, would you like to be in our independent film? Come in and act for the day. And that's about it. Maybe they get the acting bug, but yes, they are non-professionals. But then there are my first-timers, and my first-timers are people like Bria Vinaite, and all the kids. I like to, basically this is just their first film. I don't like to call them non-professionals because it doesn't help with their moving their careers along. And so yeah, I do have a lot of first-timers because I love to see fresh faces on the big screen. It's very important to me. As a moviegoer, I am always excited when I see fresh talent. And so in this case, we had Willem Dafoe and Caleb Landry Jones and a few others come through the conventional Hollywood ways of casting, agents talking to our producers, et cetera, et cetera. But then we had a local casting company in Orlando called CrowdShot, and they not only had already children in their database, but they also did a large casting call out to 3 counties and asked for children to come in and audition. So we were, and there was also a little bit of street casting from them. They actually went out and looked for individuals who they thought would work in the film. And then I also did my street casting. I found Valeria who plays Little Jancy in the film in Target. one night. I went to Target, and there she was, and she had this vibrant red hair, and I told her mother that we were holding auditions, and she brought her in, and she won us over in minutes. And then let's see, Bria, who plays the mother in the film, she came from Instagram. You know, we weren't looking to Instagram to cast her. We were actually considering the Hollywood way of casting for Haley. But this character of Haley, for me, I felt, because of what this character is going through and the struggles, if we see a celebrity up on the screen, somebody we recognize, it might continue to take us out, no matter how good of an actor that person might be. So when I found Bria's Instagram, I was just immediately intrigued. You know, she had a youthful energy about her. She had a self-deprecating nature. She was witty. She was making me laugh. And she had this wonderful physicality. So we just brought her down to Orlando to audition with the children, and it all worked out. And thank God, you know, it was really wonderful that my producers and financiers, June Pictures, allowed me to really roll the dice on this. It was a gamble, but it all worked out.
You mentioned Willem Dafoe, and I wanted to bring him up. Really unconventional role for him. I wonder what made him right for the part, and what was it like working with him?
Well, I do understand some people consider it unconventional, but I look back to even earlier, and early in his career with Platoon, with Mississippi Burning, where he was playing like the protagonist or straight man. And so I knew he would be able to do that. He's a transformative actor, and when his name came across the table, I immediately said, yeah, if he's serious if he's showing serious interest in this film, I want to meet with him right away. I met with him, we bonded, we talked about the world that we were focusing on. He wanted to blend in. He knew that he was going to be the most recognizable face in this film, and wanted to take the time to become the Bobby character. And he was just wonderful, I have to say. I mean, just really kind and patient. I was surrounding him with 6-year-olds and some first-timers, and he was extremely patient and just really also just very supportive. You know, I just found out recently, and Bria told me this, that he would be giving her words of advice, in a very just words of encouragement, and never lecturing, just because you can imagine how intimidated she was, right? She was a first timer, completely green. She had gone through an intensive, couple of weeks of getting to that place where she had to get to, like an acting school 4 years of acting school shoved into a month. But she got to the place where she was holding her own with Willem. But I can't even imagine how intimidating that must have been at least in the first couple of days. And Willem was just great about it. He made her feel extremely comfortable.
Talk a little bit about shooting in Florida and shooting at this hotel. Can you talk a little bit about being on the location with all the local color and things like that? What did that add to the movie?
Well, there's the Floridian colors that are just a gift to a filmmaker. I mean, and especially this area, Route 192, that runs through Kissimmee and through Orlando to the parks. They're lined with small businesses that really are just, in a way, styled to attract the same tourists who are going to the park. So they're colorful, they have themes to them. And so we just had a plethora of locations to choose from. And of course, we chose the Magic Castle to be our central location, because how could I deny that? I mean, for little Moonee to live in her own castle. And this is an actual motel that exists there. You can look it up on Yelp, the Magic Castle Inn and Suites. And the owner was incredibly generous and allowed us to shoot there. And what we promised him, we would never interfere with his business. He didn't have to shut down. We didn't own the entire complex. We had to work around his business and his customers. But it was really great because it was a sense of community. It was we worked with some of the residents of this motel and got to, put them into some background action and even some speaking roles. The employees of the Magic Castle were extremely helpful, and even in terms of research. Every time I had a question about how something would go down or or how Bobby would have to, what his daily schedule would be like. They would give me input. It was really a really wonderful community to work with.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the ending of the movie, because throughout the film there's this sort of blend of neorealism and magical realism, and the ending of the movie kind of straddles that line between fantasy and reality. Can you talk a little bit about the ending and what it meant for you?
Sure. The ending, I don't want to talk too much about the ending, because
Of course, spoiler alert.
because it is left up for interpretation, and I know that I interpret it even slightly different than my co-screenwriter does. That's the thing about it. It is a clear. We do tell the audience that something is different, that we might not be completely based in reality at that moment. We change mediums from 35 millimeter to iPhone. And so but again, I think the most I want to say about it is that we would like the audience to, perhaps they've been watching Moonee for the last, hour and a half, use her sense of wonderment and imagination to make the best of what she has. And at that moment, I think I'm trying to give that sense to the audience and have them to perhaps have a happy ending through their imagination. So.
You've been at this for a long time, writing and directing. I mean, you mentioned Greg the Bunny. That was, one of the things that you worked on. You've done several films, including Tangerine, which I think brought you to the attention of a lot of people who had not seen your other work before. And now certainly this movie has expanded that audience as well. I wonder, what does the recognition mean for you? Two-part question. What does that recognition mean for you? But also, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to be in the independent film world?
Well, it's the recognition is great, because what it does is that it allows me to be secure that I can make a next film. It's always about making the next film, right? So it's I guess even more important than the box office is the critical response to the film, and that's what I'm happy as a filmmaker. And I know that I'll be able to, well, hopefully find secure funding for my next. I just don't want to screw up on the next one. Let's see what happens. So that's what really, I guess, if anything, that's what the recognition means to me. It's security, because this is independent filmmaking. I don't have. I'm only working for a condensed amount of time every 3 years, and it takes 3 years to make these things. So there's no job security. There's no, I don't have actually security over my future, income. And so obviously the bigger splash the film is, the better. And the advice that I would give to filmmakers is, if they want this life, this is, it's a crazy life. There's, there's not a ton of money in independent film, but you get to have your signature on a project. You get to make the thing you want to make. Hopefully you have final cut or director's cut, and you get to put your little piece of art out into the world, and to be able to live that way, and to be able to survive that way is a gift. It's a privilege. And so I would just say, if you're up for leading that sort of life, which may not be the most secure life in the world, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it right away. Don't wait. No, there's no financiers, no studios are going to come and dump money in your lap. You have to prove yourself. And the wonderful thing about it is that we're living in a day and age where it's so easy to prove yourself. You have devices such as this thing right here that you can go ahead and you can shoot a film on your phone, and you can go ahead and you can put it up on Vimeo, you can put it up on YouTube, you can put it up on whatever you want. The platforms are there to get attention, and so if you have the skills, hopefully you are recognized for it. And I would just say, don't wait. Do not wait.
Sean Baker, thank you so much, and congratulations on the film. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.